Hello, one and all, and welcome to Central London. Today we'll take a short walk around, visit a few places of interest, some of which are closely affiliated with America, actually. We will be taking a look at this fella called George Villiers and why he has a number of streets named after him. This being London, it's quite impossible to walk 10 yards without stumbling onto something historical or weird or both, and we shall simply be making use of that. And somehow we'll end up in Texas. Yeah, so that's how we roll today. Right. Stepping out of Embankment Station, we're looking out to Villiers Street, and this is Skywalk there in the distance. We will be coming back to it later on. But first, let's go to the riverbank. Close by, we have Cleopatra's Needle, gifted to the UK more than 200 years ago, and it has been in this location for almost 150 years. This is an historic artifact all on its own. It is probably the oldest thing in town at perhaps around 3,500 years old. And even the platform on which it stands has its historical markings as well. As you can see here, it was damaged in a German air raid in 1917. And there are no plans to repair these damages. And here we see the National Theatre across the river, prophesizing that not all will be well after November 1st. Yeah, maybe they know something we don't. We'll see. Going eastward still, we reach Temple Gardens. In there's a statue of John Stuart Mill, one of England's most famous philosophers, and as a young man, and let's hope this picture is not taken when he was a young man, he worried that all music would come to an end because there's a finite number of musical combinations, he argued, that would eventually be exhausted. Well, sometimes when you listen to the stuff that is being released today, you wonder, was he correct? Well, if we cross the street, we come to this house called Two Temple Place and was formerly known as Aston House, built by John Loughborough Pearson in 1895 for one William Waldorf Astor, famous for Waldorf Astoria Hotel, among other things. This has been a public gallery since 2011, but we're only going to point out that this was among the first buildings in London to sport a brand new technology, which was the telephone. And these little cherubs here by the stairs commemorate this superflex of the day. Also on the top of the house, you see this weather vane in the shape of Santa Maria that carried Columbus to America back in the day. The inside deserves a whole clip by itself. And actually I'm going to add in the description some clip from someone taking a tour inside. I have been inside and can confirm it is something else. Alright, so let's take this path, which brings us up these stairs that in turn bring us to Essex Street, which we will walk until we reach that corner, which is the Strand. And the building we see there is the Royal Court of Justice. Quite a building. I've been inside here as well, observing a superbly and wonderfully weird old tradition called the ceremony of quit rents. This is an annual ceremony where the City of London, which you may or may not know is not the same as Greater London. Yes, the City of London pays rent to the Crown for 2 plots of lands, and the payment is always the same. For one land, it's 2 knives, an axe and a blunt billhook. And for the other, it's 6 giant horseshoes and 61 nails, obviously. The oldest mention of this ceremony dates back to 1211, And if all this isn't flipping insane, the location of these rented lands isn't really known any longer. All right, let's go the other way now along the Strand. So this here is St. Mary le Strand, a nice little church. The original was pulled down in the mid 1500s to make way for Somerset House, this thing. And if we walk further, we get to the Savoy Steps for a slice of American folk music and poetry. For it was here where Bob Dylan, arguably America's greatest living artist, recorded his proto-rap song called Subterranean Homesick Blues. The guy on the left is also an American poet, Allen Ginsberg. So yeah, there's an American connection. We're back on the Strand, walking past this short street leading up to the famous Savoy Hotel. Mostly famous for having right side traffic, as you may notice here. And a little further on, we turn left to Adam Street, which sports a door double that is quite famous. At number 10, the whole vibe here is very much similar to 10 Downing Street. Anyway, turning right to John Adams Street, no relation to the second president of America, we can now get to the story of George Villiers, Duke of Buckingham. This chap once owned the land around here and sold it with a condition attached. He requested that 5 streets would be named after him and his title, including the "of" in Duke of Buckingham. And those terms were actually accepted, and here they are. Duke Street was later named John Adams Street. There is still this George Court, but George Street has now been renamed York Buildings. Buckingham Street is still here, and so is Villiers Street. And here is the skywalk from earlier. And just beyond that, we have York Place, and that used to be off Valley. Not everybody was happy with the changing of this name, of this rather unremarkable path, but at least the sign does remind people that this is formerly off Valley. So yeah, let's pay this George Villiers rascal a visit. He lives quite nearby. But first, we walk past this thing. This is Queen Eleanor Memorial Cross, one of 12 such structures that Edward I erected in the memory of his wife. Here's a map. So yeah, that's that. Crossing the street, we see St. Martin's in the Field there. Behind it, we have Trafalgar Square. And since we were staring at street signs earlier, here's another one. Allegedly the longest street name in London. And a few dozen yards from here, you will come to this Bridges Place, which allegedly is the narrowest thoroughfare in London, squeezing in at 38 centimeters at its narrowest. So yeah, that 15 inches for those not versed in the metric system. Excellent, so now we are outside the National Portrait Gallery. Let's go to the top floor, and as you come up the stairs and turn right, the second painting on the right, well, here he is, George Villiers, Duke of Buckingham. So who was he? He was born into minor gentry in the late 1500s, became an excellent student, noted for dancing and fencing, and once he and King James I met, they were inseparable day and night, they say. Soon after, George's career really got supercharged, and he was lavished in ever more impressive patronage, and actually played quite a role in political and military affairs for a whole decade or so. He even helped Francis Bacon become Lord Chancellor. Anyway, he rises all the way to the rank of Lord Admiral. Doesn't do too great in that role, and such was his unpopularity that when he was unalived by means of a sharp blade by John Felton in 1628, John became quite a hero, venerated in song and poetry. That didn't do him much good. He was in turn unalived by the authorities by means of rope and gravity. So yep, that's the Duke of Buckingham. Some say fashion goes in circles, but let's hope not. If you look at some of Villiers' many neighbors here on the top floor, we will immediately notice their neck attire. Yeah, it's a good thing this hasn't returned. Back in the day, it was undeniably very popular, and we still live with this fluffy hell in another completely non-clothing kind of a way. So let's investigate. This is Trafalgar Square and the National Gallery. Of the many famous masterpieces you will encounter in here, you will have, for example, the Ambassadors by Holbein, with a famous smudge in the center that turns into a skull if viewed from the right side of the painting. The Arnolfini portrait by Van Eyck with the famous images in the curved mirror. Van Gogh's Sunflowers, and Surratt's Bathos at Agnières. Valdemar Janczak, art critic, once pointed out that the Bathos and what is arguably Surratt's best-known painting, A Sunday Afternoon on the island of Grand Chat, which is located in the Art Institute of Chicago, where they work together. See a link in the description. On minute 18 and 34 seconds in. So close by we have Piccadilly Circus. Back in the day, this square had loads of shops making and selling that neck attire everyone was sporting in those paintings earlier. And those are called Piccadillys. They were so popular that they named this place after it. The Piccadilly line of the Underground. The dark blue one also carries the name. Since we are here, we might as well pay Regent Street a visit. A short distance from Piccadilly Circus, we find an alleyway with a very peculiar name. One that I thought that was a nod to the American moon landings way back when. Whoops, no street sign. Okay. Oh, here we find it. This is Man in the Moon Passage. Quite unremarkable passage as such, but it has nothing to do with the American space program. It was named after a pub that was here nearby some 150 years before the 1969 liftoff at Cape Carnival. Regardless, even in a city or indeed a country with so many peculiar street names, this one can hold a candle to any of them. Right, I'm just gonna drop by my wine merchant to see if they have already prepared my daily intake. Yeah, good, nice. I'll be picking that on the way back. We are also close to another loosely space-related location, which is Haddon Street. Does this sign remind you of anything? Or the name of this restaurant? And the name of that pub is a huge hint. Yes, this is where Ziggy Stardust brought his spiders from Mars, freaking out in a Moonage daydream. Or more precisely, where this famous album cover originates from. Well, if this hasn't been disorganized and unfocused enough, let's end by backtracking a little until we wind up here for a little American connection. At one point, Texas was an independent state for around 10 years in the 1800s. And Texas had 3 embassies, legations as they were called. One was in Washington, D.C., one was in Paris, one here in London, and this is where it was situated, very close to St. James's Palace. And St. James's Palace was the main royal residence before Buckingham Palace took over that role. Which sounds like we are tying up nicely with our protagonist, George Villiers, Duke of Buckingham, but the two Buckinghams are actually unrelated. And with that minor disappointment, let's wrap it up here. I thank you very much for watching. Please like and subscribe if this was to your taste, and see you on the flip side.